Yo, hello Fantastics, it's Mr. Clintastik, and I am back with my black set review for Murders at Karlov Manor. I just botched that whole little thing, but it's okay. It is okay. We are here. So I've gone over white and I've gone over blue. White to me has the most consistency. Blue has more like that. They just got some very interesting cars that I gotta see in action to really know how good they are. So now we're moving on to black. Let's see what's going on. First up, we got Massacre Girl, known killer. Love the name. Name alone, Massacre Girl, known killer is one of the sweetest names that I've read out so far. 4 mana, 2 generic, 2 black, legendary creature, human, assassin. All the right things. Has menace. Alright. Creatures you control have wither. They deal damage to creatures in the form of negative 1/1 counters. Whenever a creature an opponent control dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. Okay. The 4 mana 4/4 with menace is already chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. Creatures you control have wither. It makes your other creatures just that much more potent, and gives you the potential to draw cards. I'm giving this a 4 to maybe 4.5. I would probably pick this again and again and again if it's legendary, so you're not gonna see, not legendary, mythic. I've been playing too much Diablo. It's mythic, but I mean, you're not gonna see it often, but I definitely play it pretty much every time I see it. Every time. Like, come on now, they're really tripping. So they give us Delaney and Aurelia for white, and they start us off with Massacre Girl for black, but they give us Conspiracy Unraveler for blue. Granted, this is gonna be great in limited. I mean, in constructed, I believe. Like, if you can cheat this out or something. Actually, there's no guarantee on that. They just slept on blue. The first 2 cards in blue was Boo Boo in comparison to Massacre Girl, known killer. Yeah, I love this card. It might just be just an auto pick every time. Next, we have Vein Ripper. 6 mana, 3 generic, 3 black, vampire assassin with flying and ward sacrifice the creature. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. It's a 6/5. Now I don't necessarily like 6 mana creatures at all, but it's a 6 mana 6/5 with flying and ward. And when a creature dies, opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. That could turn the tides of a game. Still, 6 mana is really, really, really expensive. I can't, like, with good faith say this is just a slam dunk each and every draft, even though it looks like it. It looks like a card where you're just, oh, 6 mana 6/5 flyer, boom. Then you never get to play it. You know, it's like, oh, I was just 1 turn away from playing the Vein Ripper, and that was gonna change everything. So me, I'm gonna have to be a little disrespectful to everything going on with this card. I think it's a great card. 6 mana is really tough, especially in limited. I gotta put it like a 2.5. 2 to 2.5. I can't put it at 3 because there's gonna be other even common cards that I'm gonna choose over this in a lot of situations. Next, we have Outrageous Robbery. X mana, 2 black, instant. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. This is so disrespectful. This is so disrespectful. So, I'm like, it's already tough to like steal somebody's stuff. It's like, oh man, you stole my thing. That's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to make them discard from their hand or exile amount of threats you have in your deck, but also I'm starting to gain those too. So So not only are you running out of resources, I'm obtaining those resources to play against you. And if this includes lands too, maybe I'm getting overhyped here. That could be what's going on. Maybe I'm getting overhyped. Because this isn't something like, oh, it's just winning you the game. But it's really exciting. Now, I'm going to put it at a 2.5. And I know I just put this card at a 2.5 because I think it's playable. I think these are great cards. I just don't know the situation. Because it's like, oh, I exiled the top cards of your library. Great. Oh, you're swinging at me with your big 10/10 flying hexproof boy? Dang it, I missed out. So it's not just a slam dunk on outrageous robbery, but I'm really excited to try it out. I'll give it a 2 to a 2.5. Next we have Deadly Cover-Up, 5 mana, 3 generic, 2 black. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may collect evidence 6. The May ability is what's making collect evidence even interesting, because I think in most cases you're not able to pull it off. You destroy all creatures. If evidence was collected, exile a card from the opponent's graveyard. Then search its owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with that name in exile. That player shuffles, draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. I think I just run this as a 5 mana destroy all creature type situation. Which we're going to have to be on the lookout for in this set. Because white has a board wipe and black has a board wipe. So white has one at 4 mana, black has one at 5 mana. So be careful running all your creatures out there during this season, because you might just get jacked up. And I think they're both rare. They're not even mythic or anything, so people are gonna have them. They're gonna be out. I'll put this at a, I hate to just say 2.5. My thing about board wipes, I'm just not good at playing them in limited. That is the thing. You're gonna hear me say that during my reviews about certain types of cards that I'm simply not good at playing. I'll try them, I'll test them out, and I'm just like, eh. It's like, well, I have the board wipe, but I have all the good creatures. And then it's like, oh, well, the tide's the turn, now I need to run out my board wipe. I wipe the board, and now they are dominating me. So it's one of those situations where I don't necessarily do it right, but the opponents do. So I kind of give props to that. It's not necessarily going to win you the game by itself either. So I think I'm gonna put it at a 2. Deadly Cover-Up. And I think Outrageous Robbery is gonna sit at a 2, even though it's really good. And I think I'm gonna keep Vein Ripper at like a 2.5. This, like, if you can ramp into this is solid. I just don't know how often I'm gonna actually be afraid of Vein Ripper, because by the time they get to play a 6 mana card, I'm gonna blow it up in most cases. Yeah, board wipes can be an interesting way to play, but at the same time you got to be on the lookout for them. So I'm gonna give respect to it. I think it's totally playable. It's definitely better than a rating of 1, but I don't think it's like a 3 where I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna pick all the board wipes. Like, yeah. That could be a strat though. Who knows? Anyways, we have Case of the Stashed Skeleton. 2 mana, 1 generic, and a black. When this case enters the battlefield, create a 2/1 black skeleton creature token and suspect it. To solve, you control no suspected skeletons. What? But the first thing says I have to suspect it, okay? And to solve it, wait. Once it's solved, you pay 2, sacrifice this case, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, shuffle. So this is just a 2 mana 2/1 skeleton with menace and can't block. That's not terrible, you know, 2 mana, like, but this is so much text to say what I just said. And I know it has extra abilities. We're focusing on limited. Have we even discussed the skeleton at all? No. I don't know if we're gonna have enough skeletons to support this. We need something to take menace away to ever get the ability to solve the case, and even solving the case isn't that great. I'm gonna put this at a 2. Black has some interesting cards, like, and it started off great. Massacre Girl, like I said, 4.5 to a 5, no doubt. Great card. Vein Ripper, that's when we started being like, exciting cards. Just, are they winning you the game? Are they winning you the game? That's what Limited is about, winning the game. So, a 2-1 Menace card in black, I mean, I think it's okay. Honestly, I think it's totally, like, you can run as many of these as you want. And it's easy to play. I kind of want to say 2 point. I would love to give it a 3, simply because it's a 2-1 with Menace. What is going on with the internet? Like, I'm having major drops in frames. This isn't too common. Like, what's happening here? Let me close out some of these other windows and whatnot. Cause yeah, I'm dropping mad frames for no reason. Before I go to the next color, if I do decide to do red tonight, I'm just gonna reset my rig and, you know, probably do a little troubleshooting just to make sure everything is up to par. But yeah, I understand what my boy. Once it dies, you get to tutor up a card in your library. I'll give it, out of respect, I'll give it a 3. Because I think the 2-1 Menace is actually really good. I do. I just felt like the convoluted aspect of all of this extra text wasn't that great. But in the context of being manageable, I'll give it a 3. Let's see. What is happening with the connection? Okay. I'm gonna try to power through it and then, yeah, do the troubleshooting. Anyways, Hunted Bone Brute, 3 mana, 2 generic and a black skeleton beast with menace. When it ETBs, target opponent creates 2 1/1 white dog creature tokens. When it dies, each opponent loses 3 life. Has disguise 2 and it's a 6/2. A 3 mana 6/2 with menace is excellent. The fact that it gives your opponents 2 white, like, they're killing me. They're killing me with these spells. It's like, oh man, this is great, until I gotta give the opponents. I don't want to give the opponent anything. I don't give it, no, god dang it, I don't want to give my opponent nothing. I don't want to give them the opportunity to choose from my piles. I don't want to give them 2 1/1 white dogs. I don't want to give them anything at all. I don't want to give them the chance to draw cards. I don't want to give them the chance to gain life. Nothing. And so when I have to, I'm upset. This card just lost so much value to me. I'm putting it at a 2. Because, I mean, all you got to do is remove one of the white dogs, I know. But based off of how I like to play, Hunted Bone Brute is just a slap to the face. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to play this excellent creature here. Like, oh man, I love this. And here you go, 2 dogs. Oh. Well, thank you. Man, no. Now they have sacrifice fodder. They have blockers. No. I put it at a 2. Next we have Barbed Servitor, 4 mana, artifact construct with indestructible. That's another key. Like, so we got hexproof in the set, which is a keyword we haven't seen for a minute, and we have indestructible on the creature when the ETB is suspected. So it's indestructible menace that can't block. When it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose a life. So when it is dealt damage, target opponent loses that much life. I like this. I like this. ETB suspected, so it gets menace. You'll want to buff it up and enhance it, you know, but you slam this on turn 4 and you start just drawing cards every turn. And say you get to play Barbed Servitor and Massacre Girl. Oh my god. Oh my god. Because it's going to be dealing damage in the form of Wither and just start chipping them down. And then you pump this up in any kind of way. Oh, I'm going to give this a 3 simply off mana cost. Off of mana cost. It may be a 3.5. I don't think it's as good as Massacre Girl off rip, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Because this card, it can't block. That's another thing. But you can take suspect away from it. I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think it's way better than your average card. But I gotta see it at work. And if it works, I think it'll go up to a 4. Otherwise, I think it might just be me overhyping it. Next, we have Homicide Investigator, 2 mana, 1 generic and a black creature, human detective. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn. It's a 2/2. Yeah. At the rare slot too, like this. Come on, man. Pay some respect to the rankings. This is like an uncommon card to me. I'm gonna give it. It's a 2 mana 2/2, so it's a bear. And then if something else dies, you investigate. I don't even know if this is better than your average card. This just dies, you know, like it don't attack well. I'm gonna give it a 2. This is crazy. Like, for these cards to be rare, they shouldn't be sitting at such low rankings, in my personal opinion. Not a card that I'm like, oh, I think it's not even average, you know. It's more like, if it needs support, in my opinion, it's not average. I think that's a big thing for me. If this card, that's why 3 mana 2/2 flyer is average to me, because in a lot of cases it's gonna be flying over the board and it can push through some damage. Cards that, I don't know, kind of spin the wheels or you need some help with, I can't classify that as average. I gotta support the card. It needs help. It's crippled. So, and that's what I think about this Homicide Investigator. It's crippled. I'm gonna put it at a 2. Next we have Illicit Masquerade, 4 mana, 3 generic and a black enchantment with flash. ETBs put an imposter counter on each creature you control. Whenever a creature you control with an imposter counter dies, exile it. Return up to 1 other target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. 4 mana, okay. Am I reading this wrong? Whenever a creature you control with an imposter counter on it dies, exile it. So my creatures don't go to the yard no more, they just get exiled. Then return up to 1 other target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. For 4 at flash, I think this is really good. I can't put it at the average card because it needs support. I can't even put it at 3 though because it needs support. It needs something good in the yard to really matter. I gotta put it at 2, which is insane for rare cards to not even be like the greatest. Like, these should be like slam dunks. Lord. Leering Onlooker, 2 mana, 1 generic, and a black. Vampire with flying. You can pay 4, 2 generic, and 2 black. Exile Leering Onlooker from your graveyard. Create 2 1/1 black bat creature tokens with flying. It's a 1/3. Okay. I like it. I mean, it'd be even more exciting at like a 2/3 or 2/2, something like that. 1/3 is not bad. It's going to block well for you. It can attack, not strongly though. And it can come back from the yard. I think that can be relevant. I'm going to give it like a 2.5. I give it a 3 actually. I mean, if I run a bunch of these, I'm not going to be too upset. If I have 4 copies of these and every turn I slam one down on turn 2, I got a great defense. Later on I still have a good offense by exiling from the yard. I'll give this a 3. I think this is pretty solid, which is crazy after seeing all these rares that really didn't cut the cheese. Alright, next we have Lead Pipe. I love the flavor of that. 1 black, artifact, clue, equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. When equipped creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. You can pay 2, sacrifice to draw a card, equip 2. I'm gonna put this at a 1. This, granted, it gives you the +2/0 and draws you a card later. It's just not that exciting. It's just really, it's way less exciting than this surveilling, and it's less exciting than tapping your opponent's creatures. It's the least exciting clue equipment that I've seen. So I gotta give it like, I mean, so say you slam it on your bat, for instance, you know, it's like, oh, or you're on your vampire. So instead of it swinging in for 1, you're swinging in for 3 all of a sudden. So there's some value there. Maybe it's a 1.5, but by itself it does nothing. And if it does nothing by itself, I don't think this is unplayable at 0, but it's definitely not up there as something I'm like too excited to play. So I'm gonna put it at 1. Y'all are kind of on my journey of developing my new and improved ranking system. I probably should have had all this prepared before I got started, but hey, it's life. Next we have Soul Innervation, 4 mana, 3 generic, and a black enchantment with flash. When Soul Innervation enters the battlefield, target creature gets -4 until end of turn. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. 4 mana, -4/-4. Come on now. When there's 2 mana, just straight up destroy creatures. This is along the lines of the 4 mana just put on top of the bottom of the owner's library. Why is this so expensive? Granted, I do like that it's on an enchantment, so if I happen to be able to bounce it, I could get recursive value. But I would only really want that recursive value if this was basically destroy target creature. ETB 4/4, destroy target creature, because that's common ability at 4 mana. And whenever 1 or more creatures, like, you can leave the ability on there and it's still good. A 4 mana -4/4, that's not even average to me. That's not even average to me. There's gonna be other threats that are way bigger than 4 at 4, and you're gonna be looking hurt. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna put this at 2.5. And if there's a lack of removal altogether in the format, I'll move it up to a 3. But if there's just better removal overall than this, like this right there with the sudden setback, I don't know. 4 mana -4, and only till the end of turn. It's an enchantment that only does it till the end of turn. They should have been permanent. Anyway, I'm gonna give it a 2.5 simply because I don't know if I like it too much. Next we have, let's see if I can read the name, Presumed Dead, 2 mana, 1 generic, and a black. Until end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains when this creature dies. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control and suspected. A 2. I think this is playable, but it's not always what I want to be doing. I want some really, really good ETBs if I'm running something like Presumed Dead. You know, maybe some first strike creatures. Yeah. For the most part, I want some really good ETB creatures. So I feel like that's a lot of support that's needed. Don't know how often I want to run Presumed Dead. Next we have Slimy Dual Leech, 4 mana, 3 generic and a black. Leech. It's ugly. That is ugly. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control with power 2 or less gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. It's a 2/4. So it can turn itself into a 3/4 Death Toucher, or turn another creature into, you know, a +1/0 Death Toucher. I'm gonna give it a 2. Black is looking very mid. Very, very mid. Next we have Fester Leech. Black. Whenever Fester Leech deals combat damage to a player, you mill 2 cards. In addition to not liking to give my opponents anything, I don't like to remove my own resources either. And I think that's why Collect Evidence isn't something I'm too excited about. I don't want to exile from my graveyard to access these abilities that I don't care too much about, or that's overcosted at that rate. This is the same. 1 mana makes me mill myself. I don't want to. I simply don't want to. Pay 2, 1 generic and a black. It gets 2/2 until end of turn. Activate only once. So on turn 2, this could be a 3/3. So I get it. You know, you kind of gotta pay the price to get this ability. I just don't want to. 1 mana 1/1 that I have to pump into to 2/2 and it mills myself for 2. I'll put it at 2.5. Honestly, I think it's way better than that. I think it's probably a 3, simply based off the fact that it can be a 2/2 off turn on turn 2, but at the same time, say you play 1 on turn 1, turn 2 you can't play another one because you won't be able to pump on that turn. Then your math gets thrown off. So this to me is like a 2.5. Maybe even, I'm gonna set it at a 2. I don't like this card. I don't like it. I don't think it's that great. I'm gonna put it at 2. Next we have Polygraph Orb, 5 mana, 4 generic and a black artifact. When it ETBs, look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. You lose 2 life. Pay 2, tap, collect evidence 3. Each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card or sacrifice a creature. I'm putting this at 1. Yeah, I'm putting it at 1. If I probably would have put it at 2 if it was 4 mana, but at 5 mana, that's too overcosted. It makes me lose 2 life. Then I have to the ability is okay. You know, if they can't discard or sacrifice a creature, you know, they lose 3 life. But you had to collect evidence 3. I think this is too slow. I think this is overall too slow. I'll give it, I mean, it's recursive. I'll give it a 2. I'll give it a 2. It might be enough to get behind the line. You know, you do this twice, that's 6 life. You do it 3 times, that's half their life. I just don't like the fact that you have to lose 2 life. So I'll give it a 2. I'm probably willing to see what it's about at some point. Clandestine Meddler, 3 mana, 2 generic and a black, vampire rogue. When it ETB, suspect up to 1 other target creature you control. So it gives a creature menace. Whenever 1 or more suspected creatures you control attack, surveil 1. I'll put this at 3. You know, it can make another creature menace. I think that's dope. I don't necessarily like the fact that you won't be able to block appropriately. You'll have to keep that in mind as you suspect your own creatures. But say you run, you know, 3 of these and you play 1. Doesn't really do much, you know. But you play a second one, suspect the first one. Now it's a 3/2 menace. And you play it again, do the same. So I think overall this card can help you win the game a little easier than some of the other cards we've seen. But it's not a slam dunk. But even the extra ability, whenever 1 or more suspected creatures you control attack, you surveil 1. I think that's okay. I'm gonna put it at 3, maybe 3.25. I think this is actually a little bit better than your average card, but that's to be determined. Next we have Persuasive Interrogators, 6 mana. Do not like that. When it ETBs, investigate. Whenever you sack a clue, put target opponent gets 2 poison counters. It's a 5/6. So you need, so the math on this. This is a 6 mana spell. It's a 5/6. So you gotta pay 6 mana, then to get the poison counters, you gotta sink another 10 mana and 5 permanents into this card. It's flavorful. I think it's cool. It's a 1. I don't think it's totally unplayable, but I don't know if you're really gonna ever get the point. You really want to be dedicated to making that poison thing go off. And the 6 mana 5/6 just isn't that cool. It's not cool at all. So I'm gonna put it at 1. I think a big brain player is gonna come in and be like, yeah, I'm doing that in limited. Like, that's something, if y'all want to see me try that in limited, I'd do it. And I'll try to run all the ramp I could and then run something like this and try to sack them off. But that's the only way I see this card ever being like cared about. Next we have Undercity Eliminator, 5 mana, 3 generic, 2 black. Gorgon Assassin. When it ETBs, you may sacrifice an artifact or creature. When you do, exile target creature an opponent controls. I'd run a playset of these. I'd run a playset of them. You tell me by the time I get to 5 mana, I'm slamming down a creature, and I'll generate what I need. Because these stack on themselves. You could play this, sack a creature, exile one of their things, and then play into this and do it again. I like this a lot. The 5 mana is kind of boo-boo. And if you're running too many of these, you're gonna get hung up. I do like the exile ability. I think it's a great removal spell. I gotta sit it at 2.75 because of the mana cost. If this was 4 mana, this would be a slam dunk. But it's a little bit worse than your average removal spell. It's a little bit worse than that. So I gotta put probably a 2.5. Can't even give it the 2.7. I gotta give it the 2.5. Case of the Gorgon's Kiss. It's 1 black. When this case enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature that was dealt damage this turn. Okay. To solve, 3 or more creatures were put in the graveyard for anywhere this turn. Solve. This case is a 4/4 Gorgon with Death Touch and Lifelink in addition to its other types. This is something you want to pair with your board wipes. You know, if you're trying to go for that board wipe type situation, boom, you know, you swing in with one of your weak creatures, they block, you blow up something, or you just board wipe and and leave behind a 4/4 Gorgon with Death Touch and Lifelink. The first part of the case, I don't know how often that happens. To solve it, I don't know how easy that'll be. I don't know if this is I don't think this is necessarily your average card. I think this takes a lot of support. I'm gonna put it at 2. I think it has a high ceiling, but it needs a lot of support. Next we have Long Goodbye, 2 mana, 1 generic and a black. Instant. This spell can't be countered. Destroy a target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. So all the disguised creatures for 2 mana are gone. All of them. This is way better than that 5 mana. Was it 4 mana enchantment that we saw? Four mana enchantment, neg 4. Get that out of my face. 2 mana instant that's gonna take care of a lot of creatures. It's not gonna take care of every creature. It's not, but it's only 2 mana. That 4 mana enchantment's not gonna take care of every creature. And the issue is, it's not gonna take care of every creature, but it's 4 freaking mana. At 4 mana, I need you taking care of every creature. At 2 mana, you can have some conditions. So yeah, and it can't be countered. 3.5. I'll run 4 of these. I'll run every copy out. Boom, boom. Just give me that. I'll eat them up because it bypasses that ward ability. Solid card. You're gonna want to run your long goodbyes. Next we have It Doesn't Add Up. 5 mana, 3 generic, 2 black. Instant. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield suspected. I'm gonna give this a 2. It needs support. You gotta have something good in your yard. Otherwise, turns 1 through 5, you're looking kind of goofy. Night Drinker Mori. 4 mana, 3 generic and a black. Vampire, flying. ETBs. You lose 3 life. 4 mana, 4/2 flyer. That makes me lose 3 life. I'm gonna put it at a 2. I'm just riddling off these 2s like crazy. You know, I don't like the fact that I have to lose 3 life, so there's going to be positions in the game where I might not ever even be able to play this because of my life situation. I don't like that. This, to me, is almost unplayable. Almost. You can play it out for 3 and then disguise for 2. So, that's something. Well, so will you bypass the lose 3 life if you basically morph this to the board then flip it? If you can bypass that lose 3 life, I think it's definitely a solid 2. If you can't, I still kind of think it's a 2, but it might fall to a 1 in a lot of cases. Next we have Cerebral Confiscation. 3 mana, 2 generic and a black. Shoot sorcery. Choose 1. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. I'm gonna put it at a 1. I mean, 3 mana. There's cards at 1 mana that can let you look into the opponent's hand and make them discard a particular like card. So at 3, it's playable, but it's almost to the point of unplayability when you know there's abilities that are way cheaper than that, even at 2 mana. Next we have Unscrupulous Agent. 2 mana, 1 generic and a black. Elf Detective. When it ETBs, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. 1/1. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I just talked about how this just isn't that great in comparison. Like a 2 mana 1/1. I'll run both. This is 3 mana. I'll rate this at a 3. I'd play a playset of these. Just run them. Because they're gonna be getting rid of lands, support spells, then creatures. This is solid. It's gonna block for you and kind of control what they can do with the spells. It's gonna extinguish their resources to a degree. Way better than Cerebral Confiscation. I'll put it at like a 3. I think this is a very average card, especially after the last set. Or what set was I playing recently where I used a lot? It wasn't Eldraine, I don't think. I can't recall, but there was a set recently I was playing, and I mean the discard abilities was just excellent. Murder, 3 mana, destroy target creature, slam dunk. We'll put it at a 4. Destroy target, just boom, destroy target creature. 4. Instant. Poof. Give it to me. Easy. Probably a 4.5. It destroys anything, any creature. Slice from the Shadows. X mana and a black. Instant. This spell can't be countered. Target creature gets neg X until end of turn. Okay, so a 4. Like, these don't win the games by themselves, but they're so freaking good. They deal with so many threats. They're not just the average card. You're going to definitely want to run your Murders and your Slice from the Shadows. And Slice from the Shadows is probably actually a 4.5 simply off the merit. It scales. You can use it early game. You can use it late game. And it goes right through ward. Perfect. I'm giving this a 4.5, and I'm going to leave Murder right there at the 4 range. I think this is a little bit better, but I could be wrong. I think they could be interchangeable. Next, we have Toxin Analysis. 1 black. Instant. Target creature gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. And Investigate. Okay, I'll put this at a 2. It takes support, it needs things. You're always going to typically have a creature, though. Lifelink and Death Touch, that could turn the whole game around. So this could be like a 2.5. Once again, it needs support, and you investigate off of it. I'm going to give this a 2.5. This is going to help you get rid of problem threats. This is going to help you stay in the game. This is going to replace itself by investigating and generate a permanent artifact. I'm giving it a 2.5. If this was any kind of creature, it would definitely be it would definitely be a 3. Gnarling Gorehound, black, menace dog. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you surveil. And it's a 1/1, a 1 mana 1/1. It's almost like a 1 mana 1/1 menace is almost like a 1 mana 1/1 flyer. It's not going to deal a lot of damage, but it's something to play early game, something that's really evasive early. It can kind of help you pressure immediately. Also, whenever you play your cheap creatures, you get to surveil. So I think this is actually a key piece, and it's like really easy to play. You run 3-4 of these, yeah. You run some of the pump spells too, that bring creatures back from the yard, different things like that. I'm gonna put this at a 3. I actually really like this. I almost like it more than I like the 1/1 flyer. Almost. We'll have to see. So I'm gonna give this a 3. See how it plays out. It's crazy that the common cards are more average than the rare and mythics. Anyway, next we have Basilica Stalker, 6 mana, vampire detective, flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, you gain 1 life and surveil 1. It can come down as a disguised creature, and it's a 3/4. So it's a 6 mana 3/4 flyer that you can play out at 3, flip for 5. It's a 2. I think people may play this card actually. You know, this might get to the average state because you can play it out disguised. This might be a 3. The fact that you can flip it at 5 as a 3/4, 5 mana 3/4 flyer still isn't that good. It's not even a 5 mana 3/4 flyer. It's really like 8 because you had to pay 3 to do it initially, and then pay another 5. I gotta keep this at 2. I think I'm gonna see a couple people play it, but I don't know if it's gonna be the impact that people may think it's gonna be. Next we have Rot Farm Mortipede. That's 4 mana, 3 generic, and a black creature insect. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, Rot Farm Mortipede gains +1/+0 and gains menace and lifelink until end of turn. 4 mana 3/4. I'm leaving it at a 2. Leaving it at a 2. The fact that it can get lifelink is great, but you have to support that. I don't want to support a 4 mana 3/4 on the ground at all. Not really. Especially this pairs with the collect evidence, and I'm not even liking collect evidence, so it's definitely not something I want to do personally. Next we have Ally Assailant, 3 mana, 2 generic, and a black creature, vampire rogue. Ally Assailant enters the battlefield tapped. It has disguise 6, and when its turn face up, opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. It's a 3/3, so it's a 3 mana 3/3 that comes in tapped, unfortunately. But say you can play it as a 3 mana 2/2 with ward, and if you flip it, you might win the game. But it's gonna do some things for you. I'll put this as average. I'll give it a 3. I'll run a few copies of these actually. You know, I'm 3 mana 3/3. All it's missing is menace, honestly. So it's probably like a 2.5 because you may not get that disguise off too often. I'll give this a 2.5, but a 3 mana 3/3 isn't bad. And the only reason I'm really giving it 2.5 is because it comes in tapped and doesn't have something like menace associated with it. Both of those conditions. Having one of those conditions would have put it at a 3. Having both of those conditions would have had it higher. Uh-oh. What did I do? So far, black isn't overly exciting. The only cards I'm so far excited about really is Massacre Girl and the removal spells that bypass ward. Next we have Agency Coroner, 5 mana, 4 generic and a black. Ogre Cleric, pay 2 and a black, sacrifice another creature, draw a card. If the sacrificed creature has suspected, draw 2 cards instead. It's a 3/6. So a 5 mana 3/6 where you have to sacrifice creatures to get abilities. I'm putting it at a 1. Black, what are you doing? There's such a variance between the good cards in black and the cards. And there's not much middle ground. I don't know how often I've even said cards are average. It's either really good or like not that great. Next we have Repeat Offender, 2 mana, 1 generic and a black, Human Assassin. You can pay 2 and a black. If Repeat Offender is suspected, put a 1/1 counter on it. Otherwise suspected, it's a 2/1. This is freaking great! What are you talking about? A 2 mana 2/1 that can the next turn basically be a 3/2 with menace on turn 3, which is still great, that can continue to put counters on itself. It's a mana sink that's actually beneficial. I'll give this average, especially at 2 mana, because you can run a few of them, use them as chumps or whatnot, and then mid to late game they become bombs. So they're average early and bombs late. Might even be higher than a 3, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Next we have Macabre Reconstruction, 4 mana, 3 generic and a black, sorcery. This spell costs 2 less to cast. If a creature card was put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. I like cards that give me 2-for-1s. So I'm gonna give this like a 2, because it's not gonna necessarily help you win the game. It could bump up to a 2.5, but honestly, no. 4 mana, if it's 4 mana to play this, it's definitely a 2. If it's 2 mana to play this, it can go up to a 2.5. But off top, it is 4 mana to play it, and I gotta leave it as a 2 and assume that's what you're playing it as. But it's a nice card that's gonna support a lot of strategies. Extract a Confession, 2 mana, 1 generic and a black, sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may collect evidence 6. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If evidence was collected, instead each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. This is probably one of the better collect evidences. Now it's collect evidence 6, which is kind of okay because you're going to want to blow up their really strong things later in the game anyways. Early, it still works as sacrifices. I'm going to put this as 3. It could go up to a 3.5 because it still gets around that ward ability. It makes them sacrifice something. And I have not been seeing a lot of token generating things going on. I think this is actually a 3.5, maybe even a 4. This is actually just growing in my mind. So yeah. So overall, black looks okay. Like their creatures and spells are just kind of overcosted in a lot of areas. Like by the time you get to 4 mana in black, the cards just do not come off worth it unless it's mythic. Massacre Girl looks great. You know, Barb Servitor looks experimental. But cards like Bone Brute, even at 3, is like, I don't want to give them those benefits. So right now, and it's crazy, but I feel like it's white with consistency, blue with kind of cards I want to try and experiment with. Black just has a lot of cards. I'm like, okay, you cool. They got some consistency. They got some things I want to try, but overall, it seems really, really overcosted, and that's what's holding black back to me. All right. So as I said, I was going to take a break after this session. We got white, blue, and black complete. Next is red into green. I'm going to take a break, pause, restart my rig, see what's going on, and I will be back later on. If you enjoy my content, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and share. Helps the channel to grow, and as always, you guys are fantastic. My name is Mr. Clintastik. I will catch you guys next time.